Hey everybody, it's your pal Drew Dracy, and I decided to focus again on a singular artist, or single artist, in this episode because I find that they tend to get more views. And for those of you who didn't grow up in the 70s, didn't have your hair parted in the middle and down the side, and put have right everywhere on your Huffy 10-speed with anyway, pop rocks, shit like that, okay? This might come as a nice surprise to you. And if you are from that era, then that age, from my old age, this will be a welcome remembrance of, you know what I mean. So I'm going to focus on Jim Starlin. Now, like, that's not Jim Starlin. That's a regular artist at the time, Keith Pollard. And that's not Jim Starlin either, and neither is that. Well, this episode I'm going to focus not on Captain Marvel, not on those two fantastic annuals that he did with the Avengers Marvel 2 in 1 and some of his better known work. I'm going to focus on a fill-in issue just like out of nowhere. Back then, you didn't have previews. You had zero idea what was coming out next. Zero idea. You might have some fanzines that managed to talk to an artist here and there. Like, I used to get the newsletter from the Pittsburgh Comics Club, and they'd have extensive interviews, and they would talk about stuff that would come up, but it was so far in advance that a lot of times the plans didn't really, they changed. So, or for good or bad, don't matter. All right, now. What's great is, at this point, I tapped out at Amazing Spider-Man, even before Ross Andru left, and I loved Ross Andru, but the damn book, it was in such a holding pattern. It was like the same, so much time an issue dedicated to J. Jonah Jameson. I mean, he didn't have to be in every fucking issue, but they really locked the book into, just, you read one, you read them all. And I know every comic is someone's first comic, but at least you got to make the damn thing interesting. And the only thing that's mildly interesting here is like that J. Jonah Jameson gets so crazed that he ends up in a mental ward, and it's sort of played for laughs or whatever, but it's just dumb. And I think, and I don't really necessarily blame Marv Wolfman. It's just there's a lot of stuff, or Len Wein. It's just that was sort of the edict at the time, or like an unspoken thing. And there was a lot of blah, 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 like this. And, good art by Ross Andru and then Keith Pollard. And, well, I hadn't bought the book since, I'm trying to think of what the last issue I bought was. Probably, I don't know, a few months before, it was the Nova guest star issue 171. So here we go. Out of the blue, out of the wild. I thumbed through this. I'm curious. I see Captain America. The old trope of, like, can you guess this villain? And like, nobody looks like this villain ever. And Jim Starlin, Marv Wolfman co-plotting, and that's when that makes some real magic. And a young Bob McLeod, who I think was with Neil Adams' studio. There's so many fantastic artists that were in Neil Adams' studio that came out of there. And also in Detroit, Rich Buckler, Jim Starlin were friends, as well as Alan Milgram. And so they had like the Detroit mob there. Orville Jones, Keith Pollard. So you had these two major factions just churning out great artists. Now, this has got to be the ugliest goddamn cover, and it has nothing to do with Pollard. He pencils well, he inks himself well, but blah, 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 it's just, it takes away. There's no drama. And then down here, even more. I don't mind. I mean, I would love covers to go back to telling what's inside the story, because now everyone's just sort of like a poster. So I'm just going to start. This was like a great thing to find in the wild. It was like, oh my God, Jim Starlin. And I think for a while, maybe it still is, but the Starlin issues would go up in price in like the Overstreet Price Guide, because he just, at this point, he wasn't doing a lot of books. He was doing a lot of the mainstream books. He did some underground stuff too, like with I'm trying to think, Mike Friedrich and Star Search or something like that. Now, Bob McLeod, this is a fascinating combination, and it's perfect for this kind of superhero story. He's just doing all this great stuff. And what's cool is it reminds you sort of like how he did Spider-Man in the Marvel 2-in-1 annual where Thanos had died the first time. And here comes Cap. What I love is Spider-Man's drawn like a standard guy who's, Olympic shape, and Cap just looks like a bull, a bull that's ready to charge. And he's like, get out of here. And I was like, wait a minute. I've told you more than I'm permitted to. Now beat it. You've blown it, Cap. I've been pushed around too many these past few years, so they get in their obligatory fight, but it doesn't last long because Cap blocks with the shield, and I said no, Web Slinger, and Captain America means what he says. Love that Zipatone effect. I'll say, I know I'm sick of it, but my one trope is there was no computer coloring back then. People use Zipatone and line work to create the illusion of depth. So it goes on where it starts off with this little boy who got bit by a rat, and he ends up with the plague. It wasn't like evident right then. I don't know why. I mean, I could reread this, but we'll just get to the action. That's pretty cool there. He sees the kid, and the kid's scared, but he's being held by a mystery character. Ooh, I wonder who. Boy, I'm glad he didn't look at the cover, just blindly reached on the spinner rack. So, for greed, he's holding the kid hostage. And it is Electro. Electro could be really dorky and really I don't know how to explain it. A lot of people can't really make him impressive, but this is impressive. And look at Cap's body language leaping back. I mean, from the charge, he's getting ready to kill him. That I don't think was ever done before. That's a real nice touch. Some great cross hatching. I mean, Bob McLeod's one of my heroes. I interviewed him for, this is going back 15 years. I interviewed him for Comic Book Resources, and it was such an enjoyable interview. We went over his whole body of work, starting off like in 72 or so. There's some classic action there. This could have been an issue of Marvel Team Up too, which is interesting because they chose to do it in Spider-Man. I guess the schedule may have been behind, but that's okay. See, back then, most comics, listen to me, old geezer, you didn't normally have many team-ups in standard books. You had Marvel Team Up, Marvel 2-in-1 for that purpose. But once in a while, it would be shocking to see, like, oh, wow, Captain America is just guest starring in another person's book. And he's like, get back, cough, 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 cough. And he's like, that's where you're wrong. And he says, only thing you'll go with that child is to your grave. Aren't you being melodramatic? What do you mean? You've seen the SHIELD agents everywhere. You know that the power station is sealed off. You have the plague. You can't be serious. And Cap basically says, I am not, on my word as Captain America, and I am Captain America. Me and Superman, we never lie. We're like the straights, biggest straights. So he has a fit. He's trying to fry the plague out of him somehow, using supervillain logic. And it's overloading, Jesus Christ. Okay, and then beautiful. It's like those movie explosions people slowly walk away from, but they're actually running the hell out of it, which is more understandable. Finds the shield out of the debris. That's a great touch. You just don't see that a lot, where he's just like, oh, I got my shield somewhere around there. So Dum Dugan, he keeps quiet about it. He says, I will tell him it was lightning, because everyone's asking. They bought it then, they'll buy it now. So it's just one of those government cover-ups, and You can't really argue in this case because it is a sort of like a panic-inducing situation. If you find out you have the plague, and then your neighborhood, the property values drop, and everyone's running around, all the moms and kids and dads are just terrified. Okay, now these delicious books are from Amazon. They're prose stories based on a imaginary band in Pittsburgh called the Demands, run by a young lady named Lainey Kilburn, and she dates one of the big mobsters' son, and they get romantic, and shit happens. Now, you know what's weird? These latter issues of Ghost Rider are really not Marvel Masterwork worthy, but I love Ghost Rider so much as a kid. Now, if you grew up in the 70s, motorcycle culture, Mustang muscle car culture was just huge in the States, everywhere. I mean, my brother had a motorcycle. I had a mini bike, which I wrecked like a dumbass. And then my dad even bought a little Suzuki just to go down the street. He didn't go very far in it, but I mean, that's how deep it was, because my dad is not the motorcycle type, and I don't think he kept it very long. So anyway, this is one of my least favorite covers, but since Doctor Strange's second movie was about to come out, they decided to tie it in, because the real cover should have been, see, that's right there, it's just there. This should have been hanging there. That motherfucking badass cover, that should have been the cover. But, now they're trying to tie in with the movies, almost to a fault, but I get it. Don Perlin takes over for a majority of the series. He sort of starts around this issue, and he goes almost all the way to issue 60 when then Bob Budiansky and then later Dave Simons take over, and it is awesome. It got reprinted in the 90s actually, and I'm basically saying to myself, there's only like 3 more volumes of this, so I might as well have all of them, and they're not bad stories. Michael Fleischer writes a lot of them. Well, actually, to be honest, I tapped out about, I'll show you. Okay. Okay, I saw that, but then it was like this, the tie into the trend of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It was just so fucking goddamn stupid. And if you read it again, it's still stupid. But, they were just throwing everything against the wall, see what sticks. So I was off of Ghost Rider for years. But there, happened upon that. That is an unmistakable Jim Starlin cover. And with a color hold where the entire back, the space and the skull would be done on an overlay. And production was really tough. Now this fucking pisses me off in all caps, bold lettering. This was completely unnecessary because Jim Starlin and Steve Leaho do the book, but I'll show you. In fact, I'm going to go way back here, which would have made so much more sense. Hang in there, everybody. That was the original splash page. 100% Jim Starlin and Steve Leaho. I think it is, yeah. But for some reason, that wasn't the current look. The Skull Cycle, which I loved as a kid because it was so easy to draw. It covered up all this other stuff that was tough. But they decided to do this cheap-ass replacement by Al Milgrom. And, it's decent for an Al Milgrom drawing, but it was so unnecessary. But I don't blame Roger Stern, the editor, because he loved Jim Starlin. I blame Jim Shooter, because this was the time he was really poking around in the books. He just became editor-in-chief. And why not just say at the beginning, let's roll back the mist of time to the between issue, whatever, in this. Should have done that, motherfuckers. So it kind of was. I opened this and I'm like, is that Jim Starlin? I don't think so. So, and here we go. It's like he's riding along, and Steve Leaho is just He is great on everything. He did a 3-part Marvel team-up story with Nick Fury, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow that rocked. So he's just cruising around, thinking, it's 70s also had that sort of like, I don't have a home, I ride my bike across the country, to find myself and get some experiences, get beat up in a bar and shit. Well, it's starting to rain, he's slowing down, skids to avoid someone, but who might that be? Well, if you know Jim Starlin, he's into he's into death as far as a scary underpinning of a lot of his work. He's very honest about death. I mean, he's not. Let me see if I get that closer. There we go. That's sweet. He has so much material on the subject of death, and it's very. It's interesting. Like his, he seems like a perfectly normal guy, and you would think somebody not obsessed, but someone who deals with characters dealing with death would be, really in a bad way. And I'm just being frank, but he does it so well, and he kind of lets the reader know that death happens. Nice framing device there, and it's not cheesy. It's right there. There shall be 3 races. There shall be 3 prizes. So he's like, here we go. 5 miles down the road, a lone cyclist awaits us. His name is Richie Petrillo. I had a teacher named Mr. Petrillo. I don't think it was him. He is our destination and our prize. If you reach him first, he lives. But if I get him first, he dies. That's so exciting. So there's the guy whose bike's broken down. They're coming to charge after him. It's like, no, Death Rider is pulling ahead of me. Got to pull her on more power. And Death manages to get just ahead. Just ahead. Spectacular. And I apologize for the post-its, but I have to show every page of this issue. You killed him, Agent, right before my eyes. There's no cheating in this. Anything goes. She's just a little girl. That's going to be the next one. And they take off again. I like the room. Really, really cool. He's like, you've had me outgunned from the start. That's correct. I like the design of this guy. And this Steve Lealoha and Jim Starlin, good Lord, would I have loved to have seen them do Ghost Rider in a mini-series or something, because they complement each other. It's like Jim Starlin has a fantastic style that an inker can really work with and interpret without damaging it. For the most, if they're a good inker, that is. But I mean, this looks considerably different than what we saw in the Spider-Man issue. And our pal, he makes a shortcut over some rocks. That is just stunning. Hold still, everybody. I gotta get that closer. There we go. Showing it off. Up here. And he lands. Back off, Rider. You'll not have this child. You win this run. And, the other thing, too, is this probably, the first page, which was an abomination in the eyes of God and Satan and everybody in between, he had this for a while, and then it crashed irreparably, and then he learned to make a flame version of it. So this is going back to when he had an actual physical bike instead of one he created out of flame. So, okay, now the race is for your life. Well, you can just eat hellfire. Death is coming for you, and death never loses. Wow. They should do a collection of like Starlin one-shots. I think that would be great, because I mean, they're reprinting so much stuff. I mean, I love that. I love it. I love it. I love it. The whole thing. It keeps moving. And you know what? Motorcycles are a fucking pain in the ass to draw. And trying to make a car chase or a motorcycle chase interesting in a stilted form like comic books, it's not easy to make it exciting. Lord, he's almost reaching me. I would never do this to a regular biker, but this ain't no normal doing him up against. So he kicks the front wheel. Unfair. Wow. Now you can see a lot of aloha in that. And then it moves on. So, excellent, excellent. But then I didn't buy the book for years after that. So, I've already explained why I got the Masterworks. Because I just like it. Now, here is the final, I think. Did I do these in order or not? I can't remember. Yeah, I did do these in order. Spider-Man was December 1978. Ghost Rider was April 1979, and the Hulk is from April 79. Now, Ernie Chan does a lot of the Sal Buscema earlier issues, and he does. I mean, it's just amazing. But you know what? I love Ernie Chan, but in a superhero book, it seems so off to me. As beautiful it is, I think Ernie Chan's strengths lie in inking, penciling and inking in black and white comics. He was one of the many, many artists with the Filipino invasion that I've mentioned countlessly. And his superhero stuff always just kind of, it kind of, I don't know what it is. It gives it an old world kind of look. And I think it works better in Conan and such because that is, way back before our present day. When they were barbarians and stuff. I think I don't know if that's a Sal. It might be I think it's a strong cover. Anyway, Feeding Billy. Another inker, another different inker. And you see demonstrably how the inkers influence the stories. And this was co-plotted by Len Wein and Jim Starlin. I mean, so Starlin wasn't like an egomaniac who said, "Oh, I got to do it all myself." He played well with others, and then there was times he was like, "Okay, I want to do it all myself." And the powers that be at the time, were very agreeable on this. Now, this book was actually done earlier, like almost a year earlier, but delays. He had other obligations to take care of, and he didn't get to finish it till later. So so this actually probably would have taken place, but fill-ins don't really matter when it comes to that back then, anyway. And I wasn't reading the Hulk for a while because you can read only so many issues of Hulk smash, Hulk do this, make funny names, and then until you feel like your brain is like you're getting dumber. As cool as it is, but it's like Hulk hates cages. Hulk must be free. Hulk this, Hulk that. Wow. That is a great pose. Love it, love it, love it. These little kids come out. Billy is already here. And you're like, what's a Billy? Is it like Deliverance? No, not quite. So the army can't find the Hulk, and Bruce Banner's in a cave. And he's like, what do I... yeah. And the little kids are just saying how Brother Billy is sure going to be mad at this because you brought in a green-skinned guy and you're a skinny little guy. What are you talking about? My head's feeling so loud. I can't think straight. That's because the army gassed you. So, you're just a couple of kids. My name is Marie. My name is Donnie. We both live here together. A little nod and wink to the Olsons. Not the Olsons. I'm Donnie Marie Osmond. And they go on and on. I love that. Sweet Mother of Mercy. And he sees a pot that people cook and eat things in, and it's shockingly human-sized. They talk about their quiet little town, and then life was really fun until the accident. Well, okay. Well, okay, hang on there. We were on a big picnic with Mommy and Daddy, and Billy crawled off and drank some of the stuff that was leaking out of this can. The ambulance came and took Billy to the hospital real quick, and Mommy and Daddy just stood there looking. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with Mommy or Daddy either, and it was radioactive waste. and they said your son will never be normal again. And Billy came back, and he just wasn't the same. And he started slaughtering livestock and the family pet. And he just became this. He wasn't evil. It's just that he was just out of control. I mean, the chemical just messed him up, and it turned him into this monster. So there's a touch of sympathy to be had here, as gruesome as all the stuff's going on. It's not deliberately malevolent. Well, that is Starlin's storytelling, man. I'm telling you, he can really jack up the excitement in the suspense. That's what I like too. So here you go, some Starlin and Alcala action. How about that? Check that out, Andy Smith. Pretty damn cool, huh? And I love these collages where they're fighting, and it just looks so different. It looks like a European kind of comic book, but yet it's, it's an American and a Filipino artist. The debris, look at that debris. I love inking debris. Inking debris is the best fucking thing in the world because you can't get it wrong. There's just no way you can get it wrong. Well, the kids are looking for Billy. They can't find him. The monster's gone. If Billy was in cave, then Billy is gone forever too. But Hulk thinks that one called Billy must have been lost a long time ago. A very long time ago. Excellent ending. Excellent. Now, time for a treat. An unpublished story by Bernie Wrightson. Go to black and white here. Well, here we go. In 1977, Swamp Thing co-creators Len Wein and, I'll get that light going there, and Bernie Wrightson began work on a story for the Incredible Hulk. Wrightson penciled 5 stunning pages, but the issue was never completed. That's a real nice approach, and so different than the clouds. He's got the clouds pegged. I mean, they're not just static clouds. Yeah, this is, things get a little crazy here. Some killer rabbits. A little bit of absurdity that both he and Jim Starlin were prone to, and as you'd see in the Marvel graphic novel called The Big Change, which features the Hulk and the Thing, that came out in '86 or something like that. But could you imagine an issue of Hulk, like a solo story done by him? Well, okay, that's it. I've run too long again, but I just wanted to share these 3 books that just made me, I had to buy it. Starlin was a guarantee buy for me. And anyway, you have yourself a swell day. I want you to have such a swell day that you're swollen. You're swollen with joy, okay? I know I will.